My name is Margaret Hill, and at 64 years old, I thought loneliness was the hardest thing I would ever survive. I was wrong. The hardest thing was realizing the man I married never loved me at all. He loved access. Access to my company, my bank accounts, my shares, my life. And I discovered the truth at 2:17 inches the morning when I woke up thirsty and overheard my husband whispering into his phone. Once she signs the transfer papers, everything belongs to us. Before I tell you how a man 18 years younger than me nearly stole the company my late husband and I built over 4 decades, make sure you subscribe. Because this story isn't just about money, it's about how dangerous loneliness can become when someone learns exactly how to exploit it. My late husband Richard and I founded Hillmart in 1986. Back then, it was just a single grocery store outside Columbus, Ohio. We worked 7 days a week. We stocked shelves ourselves, cleaned floors ourselves, balanced accounts at the kitchen table after midnight. By the time Richard died from pancreatic cancer, Hillmart had grown into a regional supermarket chain with 43 locations. Most people assumed our success happened overnight. They never saw the years of sacrifice behind it. After Richard passed away, the silence in our home became unbearable. For 38 years, I had never eaten dinner alone, never slept alone, never walked into an empty house alone. People think wealth protects you from pain. It doesn't. If anything, it isolates you. That's when Daniel entered my life. He was charming, confident, attentive, the kind of man who looked directly into your eyes when you spoke. We met at a charity gala. He asked intelligent questions, made me laugh, remembered details about my life. For the first time since Richard's death, I felt seen again. My daughter warned me almost immediately. "Mom," she said carefully, "he seems too perfect." I dismissed her concerns, maybe because I desperately wanted her to be wrong. Daniel pursued me relentlessly. Flowers, weekend trips, handwritten notes. He made me feel young again, alive again. Within 11 months, we were married. And that's when everything changed. Before the wedding, Daniel barely mentioned my business. After the wedding, Hillmart became his obsession. He suddenly wanted access to financial meetings, asked detailed questions about voting shares, became fascinated with executive structures. At first, I assumed he simply wanted to support me. Then he started suggesting changes. "You work too hard, Margaret. You should retire. Let me help manage things." The suggestions slowly became pressure. He insisted my executives were outdated, claimed younger leadership would modernize the company, and somehow every conversation ended with him gaining more influence. One evening during dinner, Daniel casually said, "You know, with the right restructuring, Hillmart could sell for hundreds of millions. Sell Richard would never have sold. Neither would I." Hillmart employed thousands of people. Entire communities depended on those stores. When I pushed back, Daniel smiled. "You're too emotionally attached." Emotionally attached. That phrase became his weapon. Every time I disagreed with him, he framed me as irrational, old-fashioned, sentimental. Then things became stranger. Daniel began attending meetings without asking me. He developed friendships with board members. He hired a financial consultant I had never approved. And one afternoon, my longtime CFO quietly pulled me aside. "Margaret," he whispered, "Daniel has been asking questions about your voting control." My stomach dropped. The majority shares remained solely under my name. Richard designed it that way intentionally. No one could force company decisions unless I approved them. That night I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m. I walked downstairs for water. That's when I heard Daniel talking on the patio. His voice was low, calculated. "She's emotionally weak since Richard died. A pause. No, not yet. But once she signs the transfer papers, we'll control everything." I froze. Then came the sentence that shattered me. "She actually believes I married her for love." I felt physically ill. The next morning, Daniel acted completely normal. Kissed my forehead, made coffee, asked about my schedule. I smiled back while my entire world collapsed inside me. Instead of confronting him immediately, I called my attorney. Then I hired a private investigator. What they uncovered horrified me. Daniel wasn't just manipulative. He was drowning in debt. Gambling debt, credit card debt, failed investment debt. And worse, he had previously dated 2 wealthy widows before me. One of them reportedly transferred significant assets into joint accounts before their relationship ended. I suddenly understood. I wasn't special. I was targeted. Over the next few weeks, I pretended nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, Daniel became more aggressive. He brought documents home, suggested estate optimization, recommended transferring partial ownership for tax purposes. Then came the final straw. One evening after taking heart medication, I felt unusually dizzy. Daniel sat beside me holding paperwork. "You should sign these while we're discussing future planning." I looked at the papers. Transfer of voting shares. To him, my hands started shaking. "You want control of Hillmart." He sighed dramatically. "I want to protect your legacy." No, he wanted power. I quietly activated the recording app on my phone. Then I asked, "What happens if I don't sign?" For the first time, Daniel's mask slipped. "You're getting older, Margaret." His voice hardened. "The board may eventually question whether you're capable of managing the company alone." There it was. A threat. He was preparing to portray me as mentally incompetent, just like predators often do to wealthy, elderly spouses. The next day, my attorney arranged an emergency board meeting. Daniel arrived confident, smiling. Until the recording was played, the room went silent. One board member actually looked disgusted. Daniel tried denying everything, claimed it was taken out of context. But then the private investigator's report was presented. The debts, the previous relationships, the financial schemes. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Daniel realized he had lost. His face transformed from polished charm into pure rage. "You ungrateful old woman," he hissed. That sentence freed me emotionally, because in that moment I finally saw who he truly was. Not my husband, a predator. I filed for divorce within 48 hours. Daniel demanded alimony, property settlements, company compensation, but the evidence destroyed his credibility. The divorce finalized 9 months later. Afterward, people constantly asked me, "How could you not see the signs?" The truth: loneliness blinds you, especially after losing someone who genuinely loved you. You become vulnerable to anyone who temporarily fills the silence. But I also learned something important. Shame protects predators. The moment victims stop speaking openly, manipulators gain power. That's why I eventually created a foundation helping elderly women identify financial and emotional exploitation. Because what happened to me happens far more often than people realize. Today, Hillmart still operates independently. My daughter now sits on the executive board, and every time I walk through one of our stores, I remember Richard's favorite saying, "Character reveals itself eventually. Money just speeds up the process." Daniel thought my loneliness made me weak. Instead, surviving him reminded me how strong I had always been. Have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be completely different than you imagined? Tell me in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, please like and subscribe, because sometimes the people most dangerous to us are the ones who first make us feel safe.